Welcome everybody. Welcome to Comfortably Uncomfortable with Coach Hemant, the panel discussion series on future of work. In this panel discussion series that we have decided to go on, and we'll have about 12 episodes, our focus will be on the way work is changing, the way the business is changing, the way people interact with work is changing, and all because of all these changes that have been happening, not just because of COVID, not just because of AI, but also because the way people perceive their life, the way people perceive work, life, and work-life balance, which is now being more and more referred to as work-life fusion, work-life integration, or it's just life balance, where work is there, life is there, and so many other things which also are required. So that's the focus of the entire series. Today, we focus on the D, the E, and the I: diversity, equity, or equality, whichever way you want to look at it, and inclusion. Three prominent pillars of a thriving organization. Not something that was talked about probably a decade ago or more, but in the last decade, I would say last 2 decades, this conversation has been gaining a lot of importance. It started off with international platforms, large organizations talking about it, and now most of the organizations have some sensitivity towards the topic of diversity, equality, equity, and inclusion. Rightly so. We need to be an inclusive society, so why not begin with the workplace? So today we have got three industry stalwarts, expert panelists to bring in the perspective. And completely by chance, we have got a fairly diverse panel also. Okay, so let me introduce the panelists to you. Our first panelist is Madhulika. Let me bring her on the spotlight. Hi, Madhulika. Welcome.
Thank
Madhulika.
you, Hemant.
Oh, yes, you are able to unmute.
Hi,
Okay,
everyone.
great. Madhulika is a dynamic, purpose-driven sales and business leader with 17 years of experience in the financial industry in India. Madhulika is a strong believer of empathetic leadership in business and in career. For most of her career, Madhulika has specialized in managing and growing high value institutional corporate relationships for the organizations she has represented. She specializes in leading small teams with attention on personal and collective growth of its team members. He's a graduate in economics and statistics from Ferguson College, Pune, and holds a PG diploma in business and entrepreneurship management from EDII, Ahmedabad. Madhulika is a strong advocate of self accountability. She's an avid reader, a mentor, a panelist, podcast guest, and writes frequently on LinkedIn about topics related to growth mindset, leadership, women at work, team culture, and of course, sales. She's a proud mother of three and does not hesitate to highlight her 10-year break from full-time career to focus on her family. She's a strong believer that each person is unique, and with the right amount of self-work, by curating self-work, one can achieve heights of personal and professional impact in their lives and that of others. She spends her free time mentoring young aspirants towards empowering their lives through growth mindset. She believes that you are the CEO of your life, irrespective of what background or upbringing you come from. Owning your life and your actions leads to results. Thank you, Madhulika. It's great to have you here on our panel today. Next, let me introduce our second panelist, Parshuram Jadhav. Welcome, Parshuram. You're
Thank
able,
you.
yes, yes, you can unmute yourself. Great. Parshuram is a passionate, purpose-driven, technical and thought leader with 13 years of experience in the automotive industry. Parshuram graduated in mechanical engineering from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, and holds a master's degree in machine design from IIT Madras. He strongly believes in adding value to self as well as the organizations and customers' growth is key to be successful. He also advocates power of expression, adaptable and empathic leadership to make the workplace a great place to work. He's a keen observer, learner, And he also writes on LinkedIn to share his experiences and learning to help the reader. He brings in a wealth of experience through his technical leadership in developing advanced products through innovation, which meets a wide range of applications. More than a decade of experience working with global teams brings his diverse experience of regions and people of discussion today. His work, he works with a global automotive company where DEI is being talked about and practiced through whole of business philosophy. He engages himself in activities such as teaching, helping rural students to explore and pursue career opportunities under giving back to the society's philosophy. Thank you, Parshuram, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And let me now bring to the stage, the virtual stage, our panelist, Saili. And yes, you are on Spotlight, Saili. So who
Thank
is
you.
Saili? Sayali Pradhan Patankar is a passionate project management professional and also a coach, just like me. By qualification, she is an electronics engineer, an MBA in IT, and a PMP certified with 2 decades of experience. She has served various industries, IT-enabled services, oil and gas, petrochemicals, information technology, manufacturing, you name it. As a coach, she helps in holistic development of an individual. She also helps individuals build stronger and healthier and happier relationships. She enjoys traveling, and it fascinates her to observe the beauty of each place, the habitats, diverse cultures, food varieties, and different kinds of people. It is her deep interest to learn from each individual, given her journey is unique and inspiring in many ways. She expresses her inner thoughts through short articles and poetry, through videos on YouTube and Instagram. Love to see her there. Her learning from all the ups and downs of her own personal life and professional life is that each phase of life is temporary. So make the most of it when the wave is up and stay strong. Stay strong when the wave is down, but always be grounded. She believes the problem is an opportunity meant for remarkable growth, and failures are learnings that help us move ahead in the right direction. Miles to go and smiles to spread is her motto. Thank you, Saili, for being on our panel today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Thank you.
Great. That is so fantastic to have you guys here. And let's jump on to our topic, diversity, equality or equity, and inclusion. I think this conversation about diversity was always there. Even 2, 3 decades ago, they were talking about having a diverse, uh, let's say, workforce. There should be inclusion. There should be more belongingness. A lot of this conversation was always there. But what we have seen in the past 2 decades and very starkly in the last few years is that the whole concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion is changing. People are becoming more aware, and there is a new maturity in the way we perceive these concepts. So today, I would like to begin the discussion exploring this changing perspective of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Let's look at what these concepts mean today and what are the explorations that are leading to the future. Because this new definitions, these expanded and the more matured definitions of these concepts are going to define how organizations are going to behave, how employees are going to work together in the future of work scenario that we are focusing on, right? So let me just go into a simple alphabetical order. I'll take Madhulika first, then Parshuram, and Saili last but not the least, you will be coming in there. So I've got ladies first and I got ladies last also. So Madhulika, over to you, your perspective on these concepts. What is the changing perspective that we are seeing here?
So thank you so much, Hemant. Firstly, it's a delight to be here and speak on a topic that is, like you mentioned in your introduction as well, gaining a lot of, I would say, a lot of crucial positioning today in today's world, right? So in all these years of professional life, gender balance or gender equality has always been a topic which has picked up pace over the last decade, 2 decades that I have been working, right? But today I see that a lot of things are changing or expanding beyond just gender diversity or gender equality. While it still remains a topic of contention and it still remains a very, very crucial topic in the workplace as such, we are now looking way beyond gender diversity or gender equality. Now we are talking about diversity in orientation, diversity in backgrounds, diversity in thoughts of people, experiences that they carry, right? Ethnicity. There are so many aspects of diversity that have started being discussed today, not just gender diversity, right? So that really makes it a very, very exciting and amazing future for us that is unfolding today because with this kind of diversity that I'm talking about today, imagine the kind of creativity, the productivity, and the acceptance, and the way the future of work is going to change because of this expansion of the definition of diversity as such, right? So, to me, DEI is something which is not an option anymore. It has to be part of our life. It has to be ingrained in our daily lives. In all organizations, whether small, big, medium, diversity has to be taken very, very seriously. Opportunities have to be given to able people, people who will fit into that role in some way or the other. If you see that the roles are not enough, then those role creations need to be done, right? So we are hearing more and more leaders talk about uh, these kind of opportunities opening up, and we have a huge population globally. We have a huge population in India, huge amount of talented people. People think beautifully. Intelligence is so diverse today that we see in different people, right? So bringing all that together and creating a culture where one can work together, where people can work together and push for that creativity. I'll just give you a small example. I was just thinking of an analogy. So if you think about a rainforest, right? Even a child can understand what a rainforest is, right? And all this has to begin, when we are young, when our kids are young, when the younger generations get exposed to the importance of this kind of diversity as well, right? So a rainforest can only thrive, can only function because there are so many variety of flora and fauna that interact with each other and make it that amazing place, that amazing ecosystem. So imagine a place where there are only very, very limited type of flora and fauna, right? There's a limit to which that ecosystem will grow. But when you look at a rainforest, you see the way it thrives, right? Because the interactions between these various flora and fauna, actually create that opportunity for growth for each other as well. Okay, so there is an acceptance, there is a co-thriving, and an opportunity creation as well. So you're pushing your boundaries beyond what normally would be a very restrained kind of an environment. So hence the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion. These things are crucial, and one cannot really ignore it. Yeah. So I think these are my thoughts that I wanted to share on DEI.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, rightly said, Madhulika, uh, it's expanding. The definitions are expanding. The understanding is expanding, not just at the leadership levels, but across the organization. People are becoming more and more aware that one, diversity, inclusion, equity is important. They need to understand it. They need to know more about it and accept it. So let's take the stage to Parshuram. Parshuram, your views on it.
Yes, thank you, Hemant, for inviting me on this talk. It's a pleasure and co-panelist. It's a truly diverse co-panelist, I would suggest. So, from DA perspective, I mean, have we not talked about it earlier? We have been, right? I mean, so far, so long we've been talking about DNI, diversity, inclusion, because we have been living like that. The take it from barter system to now we are like in current world we are like exchanging a lot of thoughts, a lot of shares, uh, too many medias that we are exchanging our thoughts in backgrounds. So it has always been there, it has inherited right from our past. But why the focus is going now to diversity, equity, and inclusion now? Because as we learn more about it, we have started realizing benefits of it. And as a human being, we know where to tap the potential and how to tap it. And that's where DEI comes in picture. It is becoming core of a business, core of an organization. And organizations are being more conscious about how they are operating, how they are really working, and towards their goals. Are they really progressing on the growth trajectory or not? I mean, everybody is giving thought to that, and this is a competitive world anyways. So while I say that, uh, there are a lot of facets are untouched, which needs to be unfolded from diversity, equity, and inclusion point of view. And that's where we all are striving to work upon, and organizations are helping. I mean, it's a top-down approach. I feel like it's not about leader talking about DEI, but there are responsibilities, or contributions from employees cannot go unattended. So that's how mix it up. And what is DEI in simple terms? I would like to give a quote here. It's a famous quote from the um, the pioneer, I would say, Varna Mayer, who was really an advocate of D&I initially, and now we're talking about E as well. So her definition of D and I was, simple terms, diversity is being invited to the party, right? Inclusion is being asked to dance. I mean, I think we can relate, isn't it? But going beyond that, every organization is doing that. I mean, diverse wise, being invited, we are inviting different talents, experiences, background peoples, right? But taking it step forward, uh, it's like inclusion. Okay, we invited them, but how to make, you know, connect those dots and get potential out of them is nothing but inclusion, welcoming them. And then, I would like to expand it or extend it to, equity. What is equity? We talked about D&I, but equity is something I feel is, I asked you to dance, but do I have an access to the dance floor? So that's what equity is: giving support, giving, you know, uh, infrastructure, supporting them to have an access to all the resources organization has, is what I feel equity. And also, this is from organization point of view talked about. And as I mentioned, organizations are moving from workforce to whole of a business approach, isn't it? So in that case, these employees are backbone of all the organizations. We invited them, we asked them to dance, we have given them a dance floor, but are they really willing to contribute? Or are they really free to dance the way they like? And that's what, belonging comes in. And that is another facet, brings in perspectives from employees, how they can contribute and how they can really uh, grow themselves as well as grow organizations by contributing in the diverse work environment. And that's what I feel like, diverse and inclusive workforce is business and human imperative. We cannot just isolate the leadership and employees that apart. They need to work together, is what I think DEI is all about in my perspective.
Fantastic, fantastic. Your example makes me want to dance and invite my fellow members, fellow friends out here to dance with me. And hopefully, they feel enough for me that they can join me in dance, the feeling of belongingness. Beautifully explained, Parshuram. With that, I come over to you, Sayali. Your thoughts on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you again, Hemant, for having me. And it is really great to hear from Madhulika and Parshuram. So, and both have very beautifully put up, the changing perspective. So, when you ask, what are the changing perspective? So, with respect to the organization, uh, I feel we are more of now embracing this diversity, inclusion, and equity. So it is also providing an expanded market, uh, a market reach, I would say, expanded market reach for the organizations to tap in, improved talent. So the wider scope is what organizations have gotten. So by prioritizing DE and I, organizations are now positioning themselves for long-term success, in an increasingly diverse and interconnected world. So the more and more talented individuals, are coming forward, and organizations are collaborating. They're more open in welcoming individuals at various levels in the organization, and focusing on how do we include them in the work culture, in the organizations, and then also provide these opportunities which are not just equal but ensuring equity, yeah, across. So a conscious effort is now going in at the organization level to bring in broad and diverse set of people across various strata. So, and it's again not gender, not just the economic background. There are a lot more diversity lies in even in an individual at various ages. There are a lot of thought processes, suggestions, observations that somebody can bring into the platter, for the organization to grow, for the organization to change their own culture, which has been going on for years and years. So that is one of the perspective. Also, if you observe, the earlier trend was such that organizations used to promote their own financials or status quo kind of a branding that was done. However, now when you see, whenever an organization puts themselves up um, in the market, in the in the advertisements branding, what they bring about, they promote the work culture that they have. They promote how they welcome diverse individuals, what are their percentages, their statistics, considering how do they take care of inclusion, how do they provide opportunities to grow within the organization. So the perspective, the change in perspective is also the branding that they do, putting it out in the society. So what has happened is people have become more sensitized towards this, more aware and more accepted, kind of, this is like, yeah, this is happening around, and this is a very good change that is coming about. So as I mentioned, overall, the perspective was talked about earlier, is being done, and a lot more is happening within these uh, diversity, inclusion, and equity and equality, what we speak about. So organizations are not limiting themselves, I would say now, and they are more open, embracing these changes happening across, because of which the society at large is changing, everybody's perspective around the society, the world overall. So that is what I feel is happening with this concepts.
Superb, superb. Thank you, Saili, for giving us that angle too. Because if you look at it, we went through the views of Madhulika, Parshuram, and Saili, and Madhulika started with the team, the diversity within the team. Parshuram took it to an organizational level, and Saili, you took it to the global level. So I think that's a conversation which is pretty much a global one, a far more widespread one, which needs to happen. But I think while the conversation has been happening around diversity, inclusion, there have been a lot of challenges that the organizations have faced in implementing these. Every new leader, new age leader that comes in, he or she are very distinctly aware about the need to put the diversity agenda, the inclusivity agenda forward and preach and practice this. But of course, challenges are there. So let's spend the next few minutes talking about these very specific challenges that organizations are facing. People are getting, let's say, disadvantaged because of the lack of diversity. But what are the challenges that organizations are facing in implementing or having their goal of DE and I achieved? So let's begin with you, Madhulika, first.
So first of all, I'm completely blown away with definitions or understanding of DEI, which both Parshuram and Saili have put forward today. Very, very interesting. Thanks, both of you.
Uh, Hemant, in answer to your question, uh, there are a lot of challenges, right? This is not an easy journey for anyone. And probably the larger the organization, right, the more difficult a proper DEI plan or a long-term plan would be to implement. Okay, it's a clear assumption because the more the number of people that you have in your organization, your goals of DEI have to be very, very clearly defined by the top management, number one. And how do you implement these goals? And just because you've set those goals and you've tried to implement them, right, doesn't mean that they have actually reaped any strong benefits or they're improving, the results are improving over time. Okay, so it needs continuous thought process, it needs continuous review on a regular basis, it needs measurement. Okay, so all these aspects will become a challenge or already a challenge for a lot of organizations. So number one, the measurement, the setting of the goals, according to me, is a big challenge. So managements or boards need to be very, very clear as to how and what they want to achieve at the end of a certain period and continuously beyond that. Okay. The second part is you could implement certain goals of DEI. But if those goals are not really communicated properly to the rest of the organization, so there are a lot of different stakeholders in any organization. So it's not just the internal stakeholders. So obviously you have the employees who are the internal stakeholders, but there are also the external stakeholders, your customers, your suppliers as well, right? So how do you weave this culture or this story into your entire ecosystem on a continuous basis so that it really has the kind of impact you aspire for, not just restricted to within the organization? Okay, so there you have to also need to see a lot of acceptance from within the organization and outside of it as well. Okay, so how do you create this culture? How do you grow this culture beyond just having a formal DI structure is what I'm aiming at. So to me, there are two challenges. How do you set these goals and how do you implement these goals across the organization? And how do you get your external and internal stakeholders to think about acceptance? Because that is the most difficult part. You could set a certain set of rules within the company, or you could try and set a culture of acceptance, but unless and until the acceptance percolates down to the last single person in the organization, the plan or the program might not even succeed. Okay, so I would say that these are the things one needs to think about. Okay, and why just organizations, right? I think there has to be a deeper thought at the level of schools even today, right? So the education system. So obviously a lot of people come into the corporate world and suddenly they are facing this issue of diversity or whatever challenges, at an individual level people could be facing, right? And if it starts from the beginning, from school level, from the start of society itself, right? I think these things over the next few decades will become far more easy. So these are the challenges any organization needs to be thinking about, and they need to be adaptable also. So managements and organizations need to think about how they are going to change their thought process, maintain a growth mindset to keep changing if something is not working in the favor of the organization as well. So maybe some experimenting might also be required, right? How many people how many people really understand the concept of equity? I think a lot of us are also thinking about it. We need to think about it on a consistent basis. It's not a very easy concept to understand. So there's equality, which you mentioned, Hemant, and there is equity, right? So I remember I saw this cartoon somewhere, right? So there is a match going on. There's a match going on, and there are a couple of kids watching from the fence. So all the kids have different heights. So there is one kid who's very tall, one who's medium height, and the other one, poor guy, is very small, right? So he can't even see beyond the fence, right? So this is where the concept of a kind of a stool was brought in only for that child who had a short stature. Okay, but what is equity actually? Equity is when you bring in a winner's podium. So first, second, third, right? So for different heights, so the tallest person would go on the third one, okay, and the shortest person was given the support of number one podium, right? So what I'm saying is, even the tools that we implement today as an organization, what are the support that we are giving to bring people up so that they can perform the best possible of their ability? Everybody has some talent of their own. Everybody can bring something amazing to the table. But how is it that an organization will enable that? So just by keeping goals and trying to implement something is not enough. One has to really think beyond the normal to be able to bring such large organizations together in their DEI drive as well, is what I believe.
Fantastic,
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
Very relevant pointers. I would say you took the conversation from the corporate diversity, took it to the schools where the diversity education really needs to start. Today, organizations are struggling to educate their employees on the importance of diversity, inclusion, and then to implement it, and struggling with the acceptance coming from people, that the organization
Yeah.
is working hard to bring in diversity, but the people are not able to accept it with their whole heart. So there's a lot of education sensitization which is required at that level. Bringing it to the schools would really help. And absolutely, the great example of the three kids watching the match. Srinivas Bayer has actually found that cartoon and posted it on the chat. So members who are attending, you can actually have a quick look at the chat and you will see what exactly Madhulika was describing. Thank you, Srinivas. That was very quick thinking and a quicker action. Great. So let's now divert our attention to what Parshuram has to say about the challenges faced by the organization.
Right. So I think Madhulika has covered quite a bit of a ground, I would say. She has really pinpointed on, a lot of things which organization needs to do internally, externally, um, how it can be, inculcated at the school level itself. She has really pointed out that, and this is all realistic, but how many of us were thinking about DEI when we were in school? Not even school. Let's take a college. Let's take where we did a master's. Where were we really thinking of diversity? We had our, own. I mean, really, you made a great point. I mean, that is one of the challenge I'm really coming down to. When we actually, our childhood till whatever years we have been on this planet, that has given us some learning, some perspectives, and those are forged so strong on our minds that breaking those is really going to be a challenge. We talk about affirmations, we talk about positive energy and all that, but it happens only on a conscious level. When it goes to subconscious mind, it doesn't really percolate that well. So what I was trying to come at is our stereotyping or prejudices, those are playing important role. When when organization talks about, let's say we have a chief diversity officer, but what next? It's about how we really, flow those thoughts, or reach out to even these um, smallest individual in terms of work profile on our organizations is really going to be a challenge. Because think about the meetings. How many times we have our biases playing a role, right? Because we have our presumptions. I mean, it could be halo effect, it can be Horn effect. There are a lot of biases being talked about. But when we come to a particular gathering where we have diverse workforce, or maybe even like party or even marriage events, you can think of those, and we have our perceptions, and those reflects in our actions, and those gets noticed by our surrounded peoples. But without your knowledge, without your notice, and what is that? That's the subconscious bias that we all are playing with. And that is the real challenge. One from, one moving from that unconscious bias, that level, apprehensions, perspectives, and what Hello Effect talks about is I'll always tend to agree to a person whom I like most, right? Horn effect is other way around. So those, auras will move with us, and how to break those auras and connect all those peoples around perspectives and make a bonded team towards a organization's goal and growth, that is going to be challenge. And also, one point I would like to add upon, equity part, which Madhulika you mentioned, how well we can do that. I mean, this even very picture from our participant here says that, what's the basic difference between equality and equity. So it says about giving equal opportunities to everybody, giving equal supports based on their needs is what equity. But when it comes to simple examples, let's take an example. Uh, a very talented female working on, she had got a promotions like, two, three, four promotions in 10 years, for example. It's a standard one, but still she had got that. And in woman's life, moment comes when she becomes mother, and that's a complete shift. Madhulika and maybe Sayali would agree to that. And it comes to the point where how I can manage these two responsibilities. So whether organization is willing to support them by giving them work from home, or maybe extended sabbatical leave to take care of their children's, and that's, this kind of examples are going to be really tricky in terms of managing talented workforce, managing retentions. I mean, everybody talks about attrition and retention and all that, isn't it? Very at the bottom of that, it comes to how that particular employee is feeling about coming to work, whether he or she is enjoying coming to work, whether he or she is being welcomed, included in all the decisions of meetings, important meetings. Everybody likes being on important things, right? So if we don't really go to bottom of that, I mean, it is going to be difficult. And that's what maybe we can, make a big corporate statement that we would like to have, DEI, 25 by 25 by, I mean, 25 by 25 is a Tata Steel who had announced in 2019. 25% of women diversity. I mean, it was initially started that way, but target was that by 2025, our workforce needs to be 25% diverse. Then they added LGBTQ and, some other disabled people diversity into it. And they are working on it. But imagine that company was a manufacturing and mining industry. And you can imagine those big plants or big mines, those are remote. Would we really be, would we really be thinking about women going to that mining site and working there? Scenario has changed now thanks to these peoples and organizations, who are taking conscious efforts to make that happen. And why? Because there are benefits to that. There are 87% chances that we could get the right, I mean, improved decision quality, right? But by not overcoming these challenges, I don't think it is going to be helpful. 19% of revenue can be improved compared to their peers who are not following diversity. So these are statistics which are generated over lot many years, so for like 2006 onwards, where these all norms came in and everybody's tracking how everybody is doing. But I think challenges are keeping up because it's not overnight journey and it's continuous process.
True. Fantastic.
That's
Thank you, Parshuram. That was quite a wide perspective. Again, Madhulika gave a wide perspective. You've taken it wider. And now over to Sally for taking it even wider. Over to you.
Sure, absolutely interesting perspective, on the challenges that the organizations are facing today, with this. Now, just imagine, when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and equality, equity, so there is so much to do, in this field itself, right? In this field, just imagine when it started. It started with few organizations, few and few diversities only were considered, I would say. And now we have like a range of diversities that uh, exist around us. We are one of them. And how much immense pressure is to the organizations to include these individuals, I would say, these individuals coming in from uh, different thought processes, different strata. I don't know, let's just put it across strata. So just imagine the pressure. So the challenges on the organizations are immense, I'm sure there's a lot of work happening. But just the first challenge that comes to my mind, and if I am an employer as an organization, trying to bring in diverse individuals on board, what is my challenge? First is, what can I offer to this individuals? What do I have with me that I can offer to these individuals, right? So I want to do more. I want to have more and more people with me, to do a lot of good work with the organization. But then, what are my limitations? What are my offerings that I can provide to these individuals? It's just not a job. It's the various positions that can be offered, what responsibilities can be offered, where they can be offered, what what I can offer, and what are my limitations. There's a constant, I'm sure there's a constant challenge running in the minds of all the employers, what best they can do. And for this, they need to map their business needs. The organization can never compromise on the business needs, right? An employer has to survive. They need to ensure that business needs are mapped in or taken care of, first of all. And then a question comes in: map these business needs, understand what I can offer to the these individuals. So a thorough understanding of the entire operations, where I can fit in, how I can fit in, what I can offer, what I can do, what I cannot do. So these are the challenges running in terms of offerings from an employer perspective. And second, I would say a little was just touch upon, and very rightly, how infrastructure ready am I as an employer to ensure that I onboard these individuals, these everybody. I would say just an open environment if I have to create as an employer. How infrastructure ready am I to it's not just the mobility I'm talking about. There are many aspects. We just touched upon the example of mining site. There are manufacturing units, there are construction sites, there are oil rigs. So you name it, there are various industries, there are various offerings, but then what I can offer, so this challenge, this kashmakash, in the minds of the employer will always exist. So the challenge is, how do I provide a better working infrastructure? If a person has to move around, has to travel, has to uh, even the I would say, not just the infrastructure of the organization. When I look as an employer, if I am located at any place, if it's oil rig, how do I facilitate as a society the movement across the city? So I feel the few challenges what an employer is definitely going through now is, even though there is a definitely a perspective that yes, I want them to have them on board, what are my offerings, how do I map them to ensure my business needs and demands are met. And then the infrastructure readiness, the safety comes in, the security there come in, there are medical challenges that might come in. How infrastructure ready, how much the investment would be at an organization level to ensure that I offer diversity, I ensure inclusiveness, I definitely want to give equal opportunities. I don't want any anything to be missed out, nowhere I want a scope of inequality. But then I'm sure the constant challenge is, how do I overcome these challenges? How can I be sufficient and wholesome enough to offer this to everybody? I mean, there are small scale industries, there are large scale industries, and each might have their own challenges with respect to these things. So I feel these are the challenges I'm sure the organizations are going through at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a different take on the challenges, I would say. Very rightly pointed out that while organizations are making efforts and they are struggling with the mindset of the people, they're also struggling with infrastructure. Whether it is gender, I mean, when we started off with genders, we had situation where a lot of factories, construction sites, as rightly pointed by Sailesh, did not have washrooms for the women. I remember this famous movie about a black woman not having, this was about the space station NASA, and they did not have a washroom in their campus, and she had to walk 20 minutes or 30 minutes just to visit the washroom. The same is the situation in India until a few years ago or a decade ago. So we have come across with that, but when you extend the conversation of diversity to physically challenged people, a whole different level of infrastructure is required within the organization to, let's say, facilitate mobility of the people. But it's not just that. The person has to come to office. From his or her home to office is a very long transit, going through public transport, taking the roads, moving through steps, ramps, missing ramps on so many places. There's a lot more to be done to make the workplace, the schools, the whole country, the city and the country more inclusive and for people, right? We talked about the dance floor example. Is there a dance floor for the people who are physically challenged? The government, the organization will have to join hands and give that. Well, we now come to the last leg of our panel discussion. We have talked about the changing definitions, we have talked about the challenges, but the leaders are looking at solutions. So, my question to the future CXOs of this country are, what are, let's say, two things you would suggest as a solution, as things that organizations need to do to overcome those challenges? Just focus on the top two things, and that's what I would be looking at, a great solution soundbite from you. Let's start very quickly with Madhulika.
So, Hemant, I'll make it very quick. To me, there are two simple solutions I am looking at. I think some of them I already spoke about in my previous, when I was answering the previous question regarding school and, starting from scratch and starting from the beginning, from the foundation. I think education is the key. So organizations are spending more. So if you look at the McKinsey report, 2023, it's the Lighthouse report, it's on DEI, right? And I believe in 2020, global companies spent around $7.5 billion, okay, on DEI, promotion of DEI within their organizations, okay? And it is believed that by 2026, that amount is going to double. Okay, so 15 billion plus, and obviously you will see that X factor coming in over the next many decades to come, right? So there is awareness, there are budgets being spent, those budgets are increasing, okay, but without the right kind of education trickling down to every level of the organization of society, the achievements will continue to be fairly slow. Okay, so if we want to see leaps and bounds happening, I think collective industry level, like Parshuram was also mentioning in the beginning, right? At a collective industry level, at organization level, education needs to be there on a continuous basis. Okay, so I think that can expedite the way DEI can play out, across, across the industries and landscape. One more really important thing I thought about right now was also that we need more role models, right?
Yes.
So the more role models we have today, speaking up, sharing their experiences, making everyone feel comfortable, right? So today you have a lot of female role models who have stepped up their game, or, they've seen a lot of support, or they've pushed themselves to achieve certain levels of success in spite of challenges. And when other women see that happening, it's always an inspiration, and they also step up their game saying, I'm not the only one, other women are also facing this challenge, right? So in the same fashion, if we look at the diversity world, okay, and we have more and enough and more role models across the globe, I think automatically things will start changing. The acceptance will start happening. People will step up as well. They will not be afraid anymore to bring out the best version of themselves. Okay. So to me, two things: education and awareness, and more number of role models to society. So I would say these would be the two solutions I would, be focusing on.
Fantastic, fantastic. Parshuram, as the future CXO, what would your focus be to
I
overcome the
talked
challenges?
about, yeah, thank you, Hemant. And as I talked about unconscious bias, I'll stick to that and I'll give some, you know, ideas, maybe solutions. One is, that's the root of everything. Role model is one thing, but when our uh, leadership talks about DEI, uh, it needs to percolate down, and what that individual needs to do is keep prejudices and stereotypes away. And how we can do that is, there are too many mechanisms which we can do it. Let's say meeting, for a one example, we are in a meeting room, and if we feel that one is stereotyping somebody, give them a purple flag, say it's a purple flag, and just continue goes on. And one needs to appreciate that, take it positively, and talk outside that meeting. What does that mean? So that kind of minute level culture development is required, and I think every organization can do that. And to do that, like Madhulika mentioned, everybody should talk openly about it. Leaders talk at in the conferences and all and meetings and all, but what about mid and lower level leaderships? Are they really following that? No, it needs to be a culture top to bottom. Otherwise, we will be where we are now down the line 10 years. Maybe we'll spend double than 2020, but we still have the same results. So it is a continuous process. I mentioned everybody needs to be made aware of the diversity, benefits of it, and trainings, provide resources, and build systems which can highlight that, hey, these are the biases that these are being played out, and give out a shot. That's what I
Fantastic.
feel would be a solution.
Great, great. Thank you, Parshuram. Over to you, Sayali.
Yeah, so wonderful inputs, and to overcome the challenges that we all just saw, and there's a lot more, I'm sure. uh, uh, so various insights are already put in. What I feel, just what I mentioned, the challenges, let's analyze that. So where I said that what the organization has to offer, so let's map it now. What is the solution? Every employer needs to consciously make an effort and identify the roles, responsibilities, positions which can be offered to the various diverse individuals. So then there is an inclusion of each and everyone from this society, and then you're also uh, providing them opportunities to grow in their own roles and responsibilities. Let's admit to the very fact that not every individual can have the same growth path in an organization or a specific role. There might be certain limitations of a particular role, but then let's also try to see how we can expand and give growth opportunities to individuals whom we are taking in. So the business demand, the business needs, and HR, human resource would play a very vital role here. They have to seamlessly work with the business tech, functions, to understand what are their demands, what are their needs, and how best they can fit in these diverse individuals, their roles and responsibilities. So then they have this inclusion happening in that employee, that organization. So it has to be a mutual win-win situation. Absolutely not compromising at any things. Just like any other role we have, there are specific expectations from the role. There are specific growth path lined up. So also expand the horizon and think beyond, where I can have people come in, so that they also get an opportunity to work. And it is also a way the employer can benefit by having, as I mentioned, a various talented pool of resources within the organization. So automatically the culture of the organization changes. So that I think the broadness and the perspective and the welcoming attitude has to be there from the business and the HR to work collaboratively. Second challenge which I mentioned was infrastructure, and as you rightly said, we as in a society has to improvise, how well can I support. Now whenever we see what organization should do, let's think what I can be as an employer. So when I say what society has to do, let's think that I am the member of the society, I am a common man, a common woman. So what can I do? So I would say, in a nutshell, as an individual, or as a citizen of this country, uh, we should be more aware of the various diversities that exist around us and accept them, and see to it how and what I can contribute so as to enable diversity, inclusion, and equity around us. I think that's all from my end. Thank you.
Absolutely, Hemant, not an issue. Sailesh, I think you wanted to be unmuted to ask a question. I am just trying to do that now. 1 second.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it. Thank you so much. No, I just wanted to, like, maybe it's a coincidence. I was just got my couple of hours email from our program director highlighting one simple point. He said he just like to remind us and reinforce that we should not use term called man as more. We should refer job as, so that we will. It takes hard work of many men and women, capitalize, he said, to realize safe job as. So let's ensure the credit is given to all. So like, so it is come from, like, as I said, the management has to drive. They have to start it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think that's a wonderful initiative, right? Because I think times are changing, right, Madhulika? Man hours to now job hours. I think this just shows how organizations are changing the aspect at each
Yeah, we are
employer.
also talking about, instead of chairman, we talk about the chairperson.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Very true.
Right. So let me add here something. When we were talking about that entire conversation, and this thought kept repeating in my mind, that from not knowing about the lack of diversity, the lack of inclusion, we have come to this phase where we are very conscious of this conversation. The world is very conscious of this conversation because of the platforms. The UN organizations are talking about it. The McKinseys and the Harvards of the world are talking about it. Every organization is talking about it. So there is a lot of conversation happening around diversity, around inclusion, around equity, and there are a lot of initiatives, and that's great. But the vision that we should all be aiming towards is that there should be no need for these conversations. Once we become truly diverse, once we become truly inclusive, once we have equity for all, this conversation will not be required. And that's the world we should be working towards to create for our children and their children. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Madhulika, Sayali, and Parshuram, for joining this panel. It was an amazing conversation. Perspectives opened up, perspectives expanded, and a new light for me personally thrown on the conversation. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience which was there throughout. As we have crossed our 1 hour mark, we have lost a few people because they have had other meetings to jump into. But thank you to each and every person who joined in and joined the conversation through the chat, expressing their thoughts, asking their questions. Amazing time I had being part of this panel discussion. Thank you, everybody. With this, we can formally close this session. Thank you, Madhulika, Sayali, and Parshuram once again.
Thank you,
Thank you
Hemant.
so much. Thank you, Hemant.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.